Coming up, why I think Jaden Greathouse is the best chance of any Notre Dame freshman to have a breakout season in 2023.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, and welcome to Locked On Irish. It is Monday, May 22nd, and thank you for getting your week started here by making this your first listen of the day. As always, you can watch the show on YouTube or listen on your preferred podcast platform, but no matter how you choose to tune in, I greatly appreciate it, and all I ask is that you please subscribe if you have not already. I'm Tyler Wojciak, and I am the host. I'm a Notre Dame alum and have been podcasting about the football team since 2020. And I'm also a producer for college football talent at Fox Sports in LA. And in today's episode, I'm going to go over my top 5 candidates to have a breakout freshman season for Notre Dame in 2023. In Friday's episode from last week, I went back and looked at the top freshman seasons by any Irish player in the last 15 years. So if you haven't listened to that one yet, I'd encourage you to do so. You'll find that Benjamin Morrison's 2022 campaign was on my list because just really how great of a player he was last year. But going off of that, I wanted to predict who I think could have a similar season this year from the class of 2023. Now, to be clear, this is not about who I think will end up having the best college career at Notre Dame. No, this is all about 2023 and which guy I think has the best chance to break out and be a key contributor for the Irish this fall. So I was going through this, some factors that I considered were, what does the depth chart look like at the position? How does Notre Dame like to rotate guys at that spot? And then how do freshmen fare at that position historically at Notre Dame? And I actually went back and looked at some of the top freshman seasons from the past 15 years last week. And I found that it's actually kind of a mixed bag in terms of like which position or which freshman has the best chance at which position. So if you go back, 2022, Benjamin Morrison, that's a cornerback. 2021, Joe Alt was a tackle, which was really rare. You hardly ever see a Notre Dame freshman offensive lineman break out onto the scene like that, but Joe Alt was something special and is something special today. 2020, Michael Mayer, tight end. 2019, Kyle Hamilton, safety. 2018, I honestly couldn't find one. Like, there really wasn't a breakout freshman season that year on offense or defense. I guess if you had to make a case for anyone, it'd probably be Bo Bauer on special teams. But so we'll say, yeah, breakout freshman on special teams that year. And then 2017, another kind of tough one. I thought Robert Hainsey was really solid in the second half of the year, rotating with Tommy Kramer at right tackle. Myron Tagovailoa Amosa was also in the mix as well. So rare that you see an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman, really. I didn't see that a ton. 2016, Kevin Stepherson was great. He was a wide receiver. Julian Love was great. He was a corner. 2015, Josh Adams was a running back. 2014, Drew Tranquil was my pick, linebacker. 2013, Jalen Smith, linebacker. 2012, Kavari Russell, corner. And then if you keep going down the list, like I went back and I looked at it, and basically it's 3 wide receivers, 3 corners, 3 linebackers, 1 lineman, 1 offensive lineman, 0 quarterbacks, and 2 defensive linemen. So that's a good tell, or a good way to predict, rather, which freshmen have the best chance to play early. And I think the fact that there are 3 wide receivers in there is probably going to surprise a lot of Notre Dame fans who think that Notre Dame absolutely refuses to play freshman wide receivers, especially when Brian Kelly was around. And then I guess last year with Tommy Rees being in the mix as well, but I know fans were really wanting to see Tobias Merriweather play a lot more last year. He did not, but that does not mean that any of these freshman wide receivers can't get on the field early, and I actually think they will, which leads me to my number 1, which I have wide receiver Jaden Greathouse. Greathouse was a top recruit. He was the number 128 player nationally and the number 23 wide receiver in his class. I think he has a great shot because of his high school pedigree. He played high school at Austin Westlake, which is one of the top high school programs in all of Texas, and he was an absolute standout there. He holds the record for most touchdowns in a career, and he finished his career as literally the most prolific receiver in Westlake history. He had 232 catches, over 4,000 receiving yards, and 53 touchdowns. And he was going against some really quality competition in Texas. We know on this podcast just how good high school football is down there in the Lone Star State. He won 3 state titles and was the 2021 state championship offensive MVP, and he had 236 receiving yards in that game in Jerry World. So this guy knows how to make plays in big-time games, and physically he's ready to go. He looks the part. He's 6'1", he's 213 pounds, and that was honestly before spring practice. That's what he was listed at in the roster that was given out to the media right at the start of spring practice. So you got to think by the time the season comes around, he'll have been in Bayless's program for 8 months by that point, so he's probably even going to be more physically ready by that point in time. So he's great. He looks the part. And if you read the scouting report from Gabe Brooks at 247 Sports, he's one of their main scouts, he reiterates this point. He says, good height and well-developed build, stoutly assembled with high physical floor, early in career looked like a potential flex tight end candidate, but looks like a true big outside receiver at this stage. Advanced feel for receiver position, displays impressive route running snap with foot quickness that fosters separation and run after catch creativity. Good body control in the air, regularly goes up to get it over smaller defensive backs and plays with the strength that allows for in-traffic playmaking. And honestly, we saw a lot of that in the blue and gold game, which he was by far the biggest freshman standout in that game. He finished with a game-high 11 receptions for 118 yards. Even though he's not the tallest guy, he can really go up there and get it and make contested catches, which is honestly something that you don't see a ton from true freshmen, but I think Greathouse is just a little bit different breed. And then you look at it, his position. Wide receiver rotates a lot, more than most positions on the field with the exception of defensive line, because it's a lot of sprinting, it's a lot of running, and you're running downfield a lot. And then it's good to get guys in the mix, keep them fresh, keep the cornerback on their toes. So I think he's going to have opportunities. And I think that what we saw in the blue and gold game, he's very confident in himself. He made plays, and he said going into spring that his goal coming out of spring, or going into spring practice rather, was to be a starter by the end of it. Now, I don't think he earned a starting job in camp. He's got Deion Colsey, he's got Jaden Thomas, he's got Tobias Merriweather, now Chris Tyree in the mix as well. I think those guys are all in front of him at this point in time, but I would not be surprised if by the middle of the year he's out there and getting more snaps than most other receivers on the roster, because I just think he's that talented. And he could also move around and do different spots. Like, he's not just a slot receiver. He's not just a boundary receiver. He can do it all. He can go in motion, and I think he's going to create a lot of problems for defenses because he's so big and he's so fast. So if he gets in a situation where he's working against like a safety, I think he's going to have the body to go up and make a catch over him, even if that safety is like a senior in college. So I really feel good about this Jaden Greathouse pick. I think that it would be kind of funny that if Jaden Greathouse was the guy who had this breakout year, because for years and years, I mean, we just had to hear about how Notre Dame doesn't really play freshman wide receivers, and then I think this class is really going to break the mold. Honestly, going through this, you could have picked pretty much any of these freshman receivers with the exception of maybe Braylon James, because I think he's going to need some time to get physically ready and understand all the nuances that come with playing the receiver position at the college level. It's a really difficult position to learn, and even though that Braylon James has all the athleticism in the world to be a great wide receiver at the college level, and I think he will be outstanding down the road, I don't think he's as physically ready and is just mentally ready to play this kind of game as Jaden Greathouse is for Notre Dame, and I think it's going to be a great year for him. And I could also see him contributing on special teams too. We saw him catching some punts in the blue and gold game. I don't know how often he's going to be back there, but it's good to see, which guys can do it, which guys they can trust, because that's obviously a huge part of being the punt returner at Notre Dame. I don't know if he's going to have the John Goodman level trust that he had back there, where his job was literally to go back and fair catch pretty much every single time. I think Notre Dame is veering away from that a little bit. They want to see some dynamic athletes back there catching punts. But Greathouse is that guy. He's also reliable. He's got great hands. And I think he has the best chance of any freshman at Notre Dame to make an impact this season, because he's going to see the field early. He has a great quarterback to get him the ball, and he's more physically ready than every other freshman on the roster. Okay, coming up next, I'll go over my second and third candidates to have a breakout freshman season. If you're like me and want to make healthier snack choices but don't want to compromise on taste, I've got just the thing for you. Built Bars and Built Puffs. What makes Built so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right. Real chocolate. These bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is that they're healthy. Each bar only has 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait to get a box. You can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club, and you can still get your specialty flavors at Built.com. So head to your nearest Walmart today, walk to the pharmacy section, and grab yourself a 4-bar box of Built Bars. If you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with some of our hit flavors. No matter how you get your supply of Built Bars, you're in for a delicious treat, and you can thank me later. Thanks again for making Locked On Irish your first listen of the day. Today I'm going over my top 5 candidates to have a breakout freshman season for the Irish in 2023. And coming in at number 2, I've got running back Jeremiah Love. Jeremiah Love was one of the top-rated guys in the entire class for Notre Dame. He was the number 79 player nationally and the number 5 running back. He played high school at Christian Brothers College in St. Louis, Missouri, and he was a standout there. They just won a state championship, I believe, in his senior year, and he was a big reason why. This scouting report comes from Alan True of 247 Sports, who says, Love has a high-end combination of size, explosiveness, as well as time speed. He's a track guy who's had good results as a sprinter and then further backed up those results in football camp settings. Love is a player who can get offensive touches in a variety of ways and has home run speed from any part of the field. He will need to settle into an offensive system and role in college, but has the prerequisite tools to be a difference maker. So one thing about Love is not only is he a really good running back, he also has the ability to catch passes out of the backfield, which makes him all that more valuable for Dylan McCullough and the Notre Dame offense. We know that Dylan McCullough likes to rotate his guys frequently. I mean, in 2022, we saw a lot of that last year. 3 different guys on Notre Dame had at least 100 carries. You don't see that often. Estime, Diggs, and Tyree each had 100 carries last season, or at least 100 carries last season, I should say. And now, with Diggs out the door, that totally opens up the door for Jeremiah Love. And I think if Diggs had not transferred, I probably wouldn't have Jeremiah Love this high on the list. But now that Diggs is gone, the running back room, the running back situation is entirely different now. And that's great for Jeremiah Love if he wants to get on the field early, which I know that he does. Now, Jeremiah Love did not enroll early, so he'll be getting to campus in June. And as I mentioned in last Friday's episode, something that Tim O'Malley looked at was that really is not a huge determining factor of whether or not a freshman is going to have success. Benjamin Morrison had the best freshman season of anyone last year, and he enrolled in June. So it's certainly possible for a player who doesn't enroll early to have a very early impact for the team this season. I think Love could do that. If you look at the depth chart, Estime is certainly going to carry the bulk of the load for this Notre Dame running back room. He's going to be getting, I think, a lot more carries than he did last year. 1, because Diggs is gone, and 2, because I think Estime is a better player. And also, there was a brief point last season where Estime was struggling to get on the field because he couldn't stop fumbling. So the Notre Dame had to bench him at a certain point, and he wasn't seeing the field as much. Fortunately for him, and it was a good call by Notre Dame to keep investing in him and trusting him, because after that, he had a great second half to the season. After that little period, I think during like the Stanford it started at the end of North Carolina. He had his first fumble then. He actually said it was his first fumble ever, which I find hard to believe now, considering the amount of times he ended up fumbling. But anyway, I don't want to harp on that too much. I think Estime is going to have a breakout year. That's what I'm saying. I don't want to talk too much about the fumbling. And I think he's going to be outstanding, and he's going to get a lot more carries. I don't know if it's going to be like Kyron Williams level carries in like 2021, but he's going to get a lot. But that doesn't mean that Notre Dame isn't going to rotate, because they certainly are. And you look behind Estime right now, Jabron Payne looks like the number 2 right now. He was pretty good in spring practice, had a good blue and gold game, and he looks like he could play the part. Health has been an issue for him throughout his football career. It was a problem in high school, and it was a problem for him during his freshman season. But right now, when he looks healthy, I think he's a really good player and is a good complement to Estime as the number 2. But then who's after him? Jadarian Price is extremely talented, but he still needs time to recover from his torn Achilles injury that he suffered before last season. And then besides him, it's Love. Odds are someone is going to get hurt at some point in the season too. So then Love is looking at the third back. And Love is the type of player who, if he has that opportunity, he starts making some game-breaking plays, he could move himself all the way up to maybe 2. Now, a lot of this is dependent on how Jadarian Price recovers from his injury, because even though he was a limited participant in spring, I don't know how Notre Dame is going to use him early on in the season. My hope is that Jadarian Price is fully healthy, full go by like October, and then Notre Dame could really ramp it up with him and give him a lot more carries. But Achilles, it's a tough injury, man, and it is a tough recovery, and I don't know what to expect from him. Now, there's a situation where he could surprise us all and be ready to go by the start of the season, rather, and just be killing it, and Notre Dame could trust him with 15 carries a game, and hopefully he doesn't get burned out by the end of the year. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I do know that Jeremiah Love, regardless of all this stuff, could find a way on the field because he's just that good of an athlete. He's good at catching the ball out of the backfield. He's good at just being a traditional running back. There's actually a point in time where people thought he might just split out wide and be a wide receiver in college, but that's not the case. He's going to be running back in Notre Dame, and I think he's going to be a really good one. So if Jeremiah Love is as good of an athlete as we think he could be, he might not need to wait. Jared Parker could insert him into the offense for jet sweeps, maybe some gadget plays, some screens, things like that to get him the ball early and often for Notre Dame, because he is a home run hitter, and Notre Dame needs those on offense this year. They didn't really have that a lot last year at all, and they certainly need that this year. If Jeremiah Love shows that he can handle that kind of workload and get out there, and even if it's in limited action, he can make the most of 1 out of 5 touches a game, that could be a huge difference maker for Notre Dame, and something that they need this season to have the type of dynamic offense that they want with Jared Parker running the show this year. So I think Love has the skill set. He's going to get the opportunities, and it's just a matter of how well he'll take advantage of them, and I think he will in 2023. All right, coming in at number 3, I've got cornerback Christian Gray, who's one of the top-rated prospects in the entire class for Notre Dame. He's like a fringe top 100 player nationally, but definitely one of the best cornerbacks in this entire recruiting class. And he enrolled early, but unfortunately he suffered an injury during the spring practice, and he missed the blue and gold game, which is unfortunate because he was one of the guys that I was looking forward to seeing the most out of any of these freshmen because, I mean, the way people talk about him, I've personally never seen him in person, but the way people talk about him who have, they say he is physically ready. He's ready to go right now. Like, he looks like he's been in a college weight program for a couple of years, which is honestly shocking to me, especially for a corner, because these college weight programs, man, I mean, not even just Matt Balis, who obviously is one of the best in the entire industry, but the literal transformation that these guys go through physically, it's unbelievable to see. Like, I remember when I was in high school, one of my friends ended up playing football at Louisville, and I saw him for the first time in, like, October of the year after I had graduated. We were meeting up at one of our old high school games in the first year after, and I saw him, and he was literally a different person, and he was always strong, like one of the strongest guys on our football team, just a big dude. But then when I saw him there, I was like, this dude's neck had basically disappeared. Like, and he was just in a Division I weight program. He wasn't even a great player at Louisville, but he was a hard worker in the weight room, and he just became enormous and, like, just chiseled everything. And I was like, oh my God. And now every single college football player you see goes through a similar thing when they're a part of a real solid weight program. So I got to imagine that Christian Gray is going to continue in that growth. And by the time the season's going, like, he's going to look he's fully going to look the part. He's 6 foot tall, 185 pounds. And I think he's extremely fast. He's got a personal best of 22.64 in the 200-meter dash and 11.31 in the 100-meter, which is really good. The scouting report on him from 247 says Gray is the type of length and frame that you want in a cornerback, which is, side note, something Notre Dame really loves in their cornerbacks right now. Going back to the scouting report, Gray does a nice job in his back pedal of gaining ground and depth in relation to the receiver. Gray is able to stay square and balanced on his opponent when he's in coverage. I like his ability to plant and drive along with redirecting when he has to. He shows that he is comfortable in both press and off coverage, where he keeps leverage on the receiver and patience when the ball is in the air. Now, the one thing Gray does not have going for him right now is the depth chart at cornerback is pretty crowded, and that's a good thing. This is not a bad thing. That has not always been the case at Notre Dame with cornerback. I mean, I was talking about Kavari Russell in last Friday's episode, and he was a running back recruited out of high school, and then they switched him to corner because they literally had no one else, and he played out of necessity, and then he had an outstanding freshman season and an outstanding college career. But Christian Gray is going to have to really fight to earn his time because Benjamin Morrison and Cam Hart, they've got the starting jobs locked down at corner. And then behind them, it's Clarence Lewis, who's entering his senior season, and he has seen plenty of action on the field throughout his career. He actually fought his way onto the field as a true freshman as well back in 2020. And then you've got Jaden Mickey, the sophomore, who saw the field a lot as a true freshman. I would say too much, but he did impress, and the coaching staff clearly trusts him. They played Mickey over Clarence Lewis in that USC game a lot. And I think that shows you, even though that he struggled at times last year, clearly they see something in him and they think he can be a really talented player for Notre Dame. So he's going to be on the field this year. Then there's Antonio Carter, the transfer from Rhode Island, and then Thomas Harper, who could both contribute at nickel this season. Now, Antonio Carter could also be playing safety more so than nickel, but it is an option. The Notre Dame could theoretically use him if they want to. Thomas Harper, the transfer from Oklahoma State, if he's able to stay healthy, they brought him in to be the starting nickel. So again, it's going to be tough. It's not going to be an easy path for Christian Gray to see the field on defense. Now, I certainly think he's going to see the field a lot on, like, all the special teams units because he's a really good player. But he's going to have to earn time at cornerback this season with his play. But if there's injuries, Gray could quickly move up the depth chart and an opportunity could present itself for Gray to have a really good season. But barring injury, if we do see Gray get reps at corner this year consistently at all, so say Morrison, Hart, most of those guys are healthy this season, that and Gray still getting out there, that says a lot about where his game is at, and I'm not sure it'll happen. So I'm hoping that Cam Hart is able to stay healthy for a full season and play up to his capability because I think he can be a truly great corner, and I would love it if Notre Dame could just go wire to wire with Morrison and Hart out there playing at their best, because if they do, you're looking at one of the best cornerback duos in the entire country. But a lot of times that doesn't happen. And Notre Dame does like to rotate corner a little bit more than some teams have in the past, some Notre Dame teams, I mean. And I think that is partially because they've got a lot more guys in there. But to beat out Clarence Lewis, to beat out Jaden Mickey, to beat out either of the starters, which, I mean, he's not beating out Ben Morrison, let's be honest here. But if he does that, that says a lot about him. And I think that if something happened, if things were to, unfortunate things were to happen, guys were to get hurt, Gray's going to have some opportunities to get some action on the outside. And I have confidence that he's the type of player and he's physically ready to go to take advantage if those opportunities present themselves. All right, let's stick around for segment 3, and I'll round out my list with 4 and 5. Make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA playoffs because right now, new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Personally, my favorite part about using FanDuel is the instant payouts. It's way easier than any other platform I've used in the past, and all my friends who use it say the same thing. So there's no better place to bet all of the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Okay, at number 4 of the freshmen who I think could have a breakout season in 2023, I've got wide receiver Rico Flores. Rico Flores was the number 223rd player overall in his class and the number 31 wide receiver in 2023. He played high school ball in California, and he finished his career at Folsom High with 201 career catches for 3,222 yards and 32 touchdowns. So he's he was a very great high school football player, and he's also physically ready to go. He's 6 foot tall, 198 pounds on the roster that was given out to the media before the start of spring practice. And the scouting report on him is that, quote, he's 6'1", 190-pound verified athlete, is built with a college-ready body as we speak. He has a good muscled up and defined frame. He's able to generate good explosiveness by the way he's built with a powerful lower body. He is wide up top in the shoulder and chest area. He has ample length and features a solid overall physical makeup. Flores is a player that has two-way snaps that features athletic ability, change of direction, agility, physicality, and toughness, end quote. That's from 247 Sports, one of their lead recruiting analysts over there. And we saw this a little bit too, similar to Jaden Greathouse when Rico Flores was on campus for spring practice. He was one of the most talked about players throughout spring ball, and he looks the part. He has some serious swag about him too, which is something that I personally enjoy. The hair coming out of his helmet is cool, and he's got the visor. It's a sweet look. It kind of reminds me of Jeff Samardzija when he had his hair flowing out of his helmet like that and just dominating defenses. It was cool. He had a lot of swag to him, and I think Rico Flores does as well. And even though he didn't look great in the spring game, that's fine. The blue team sucked offensively. Let's be honest. It was not a great day for Tyler Buchner, and honestly, that might be part of the reason why he left Notre Dame is just because it was such a bad day, and Sam Hartman had such an incredible day on the other end. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. I think what we should focus on more when it comes to Rico Flores and what he did during spring practice is, one, that he was there. He was learning the offense because I think there is going to be a bit of a learning curve with him. And he's, based on all the reports we've heard, he's very inquisitive. He wants to get better. He's constantly asking questions, and he wants to grow, and he wants to be on the field this year. And as I mentioned earlier, as I was talking about Jaden Greathouse, wide receivers rotate a lot. It's an exhausting position to play. You're running around a lot. So Notre Dame is going to get some different bodies in there, and he's definitely going to get opportunities. I don't know if he's going to get as many opportunities as Jaden Greathouse, and there's also a world where some of these guys in front of him, like the older guys, they might step up this year and take some time away from Rico Flores. Like if Deion Colsey and Tobias Merriweather are so good that you can't keep them off the field, then Rico Flores' the number of snaps is going to be a lot lower. But injuries happen. We know this, and we know that Rico Flores has the skill set to get on the field early. He was actually probably, before the spring game, I think most people would have had Rico Flores ahead of Jaden Greathouse in terms of who is more likely to see the field more this season. But then Jaden Greathouse just completely lit up that blue and gold game, and I think he's just the position he plays where he, in the slot, I think he's got a better chance at beating out Chris Tyree. And even though Jaden Thomas is the true slot receiver number 1 at Notre Dame right now, he's so big, he's going to be able to move around a lot. So I think there's going to be opportunities for Flores to get on the field. And I think he still has some work to do, but I think that the benefit for him enrolling early and the fact that he's physically ready to go, I think when he does get his chances this year, he's going to take advantage of it. I think if you were trying to think of a comp, think back to what Deion Colsey and Lorenzo Styles were able to do in 2021. I don't think he's going to have a Lorenzo Styles type year, but if he's somewhere in between those two guys, because they both contributed that year, if he's somewhere in the middle, that'd be a really good freshman season for Rico Flores, and that's something that he could definitely build on later down the road. Okay, let's wrap this up with number 5. And I try to go outside the box here and pick someone that you might not expect because Notre Dame's last 2 freshman standouts certainly fit that mold. Benjamin Morrison was not even a top 300 recruit. And then Joe Alt, the year prior, was definitely the best freshman on the team that season. And he was literally the lowest rated recruit in the entire class. So I tried to pick someone who wasn't at the top of the rankings. So I'm going to go with cornerback Micah Bell, who is the number 255th player nationally. So he's actually a higher rated prospect than Benjamin Morrison, which is kind of crazy. And he's also the number 30 cornerback in his class. I'm not sure if he's going to be physically ready to hold up at corner right away, but I think he'll be a key contributor on special teams because of just how fast he is. I mean, this dude has multiple sub 10.5 100-meter times, and he has excellent points in the 200, the long jump, and the triple jump. I think Bell has a real shot at being the primary kick and punt returner in the fall because of how fast he is. I mean, Chris Tyree has certainly been solid in his career, but honestly, he hasn't broken off as many huge plays as you would think. Obviously, he had that kick return against Wisconsin. One of the most fun Notre Dame plays of like the past decade, really. That was so fun. I remember being in the stadium, literally climbing over my friend Willis Pencil was sitting next to me, and I was like, he's got a hole. He hit it, and he was gone, and that changed the entire game. And arguably changed the course of Notre Dame season because if they had lost that game and then lost to Cincy, we're talking about a completely different team that season. But he's not just a speedster. He's a natural football player and actually played a lot of running back in high school. So he's used to having the ball in his hands, which is why I think he's going to be such a good kick and punt returner. So the scouting report from Gabe Brooks at 247 says, quote, flashes outstanding top-end speed and produced good numbers at running back as a junior. He had over 1,100 rushing yards and 8.3 yards per carry. God, that's insane. Garnered almost 150 touches in the fall of 2021, which should help with ball skills and impact production once comfortable as a full-time cornerback. He possesses a good football pedigree. His older brother was actually a 2022 Georgia receiver signee, an elite track and field profile among the very best in the 2023 football class, owns multiple sub 10.5 100-meter times, as I told you, and excellent data points in the 200, long jump, and triple jump. Athleticism translates to the gridiron and provides immense developmental potential. So I think that's the key word there. Developmental potential as a corner, but I think he's going to be on the field, or they're at least going to give him a shot, I think, in the fall camp. See what he can do back there. In long term, I really like the potential of Micah Bell, but I just don't really see him getting time at cornerback this year because of all the things I mentioned earlier in regard to Christian Gray. I think Christian Gray is more physically ready to go and has a better understanding of the corner position right now. So I think he's more likely to play at corner, but that doesn't mean that Bell can't see the field on special teams this season. And I think he might actually be the best athlete in this entire class based on his speed, quickness, vertical leap, all that. So if he can translate that to excelling on kick and punt return this year, that would be great because Notre Dame really needs that home run threat back there. They haven't had one like that in a while. I mean, again, Chris Tyree is good, but he's not like every time he touches the ball, you're like, oh, here we go. A lot of times it's just like he kind of runs into contact and then falls down. But I think that Bell has the potential to get on the field early, and I think he's going to be a really fun athlete to watch for Notre Dame. And I'm actually really excited to see how he develops down the road because he is such a freak athlete. It's great to have those guys out there, especially at corner. And I think he can have a really incredible college career, even if we have to wait. But I think he's going to put it all together at some point in time, and that's going to be great. But for this year, I think he could be dynamic at kick and punt returner, and we'll just have to see. So that's my list. At 1, I've got Jaden Greathouse. At 2, I've got Jeremiah Love. At 3, I've got Christian Gray. At 4, I've got Rico Flores. And 5, Micah Bell of the top freshman candidates to have a breakout season in 2023. That'll do it for this episode of Locked On Irish. Thanks again for making this your first listen of the day. On the way out, remember to subscribe to the show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, and give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Irish, on Instagram at Locked On Irish Pod, and my personal Twitter account at Tyler Wojciak. That's at Tyler, Wojciak. I'll see you guys tomorrow.